we're going to start with verse number 1 of Matthew chapter 24. I'm reading from the English Standard Version, but of course many versions would work and are very similar. Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. But he answered them, "You see all these, do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." So first of all, we can see here that his disciples were pointing out to him the splendor of the building. And in doing so, illustrating that what a wonderful temple we have. Now, the second century temple in Jerusalem was a magnificent building, a magnificent part of antiquity as far as building is concerned. And it was exceptional. So with that, his disciples were noticing that and trying to tell him, look at how wonderful this is and look at how splendid it is. Jesus, though, came back responding by saying, "Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." So he pointed to the fact that there is much more to it than simply looking at this building. We live in a time, as I've titled this brief Bible study, where again, end times are part of the discussion, a major part of the discussion. As we hear people talking more and more about that, the question comes up constantly, are these the end times? Well, we know several things. First of all, Jesus said, "No man knows the day and the hour." And here in Matthew chapter 24, the Olivet Discourse, he gives us many clues at when he will return. But he indeed said as well that no man knows the day and the hour, not even the Son, only the Father. So we'll continue to read here. And I see that we have 2 viewers on now. And Ginny, thanks for joining in. We are looking at Matthew chapter 24, and we'll move on to verse 3. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet." "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." It's Christ telling us that what we see then, what we see now, is indicative of the end times. So the end times have been continuing since he came, since he established the kingdom of heaven by going to the cross, dying there, rising from the dead. We've been in the end times. I think most have heard this, have been part of this discussion in the past. We are in the end times, but so were they. The Apostle Paul spoke to churches concerned about the end times. Here, Jesus' disciples were saying, "What will be the sign of the end?" They asked him these things privately, if you notice, and in doing so, were concerned, but at the same time didn't want this general thought to be out in the open. They're questioning, when will you return? He says there'll be rumors of wars, all kinds of things that are happening, but don't be alarmed. One of the things that we fail with is we are alarmed. Instead of not being alarmed, we do become alarmed when we see these things. certainly with all of the events here happening as of late, discord, I should say, in our land, COVID-19, all of the disruption in our major cities because of disagreements regarding social justice. Yet Jesus has told us, don't be alarmed. These are things that have to happen. And in verse 8, all these are the beginning of the birth pains. Verse 9, then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So Christ here again giving us more insight. First of all, telling us that there'll be tribulation. Lawlessness will increase. And as lawlessness increases, the love of many will grow cold. That's in verse 12. So I think here as we look at that, we often ride over that quickly. We don't pay as much attention to it as we should. But haven't we seen that? That the love of God, the love of Christ grows cold. Christianity is spoken of more negatively today than probably at any time in our lifetimes. And with that, we can see that the love for the gospel, the good news, has grown cold. And it's even grown cold for many who proclaimed a level of faith at one time in their life. As you move throughout chapter 24, and this gospel of the kingdom, it will be proclaimed throughout the whole world, and then the end will come. So we've seen missionaries going out for decades now, doing so, proclaiming the gospel to the very ends of the earth. And Jesus said, that is the only time. That is when the end will come, once it's been proclaimed everywhere. But we still are not sure and cannot be sure when the end will come. Jesus again said that even he did not know the day and the hour. As we read here through the rest of chapter 24, we'll see many warnings to the people of that day, to those who were asking specifically about his return, when the end will come. Verse 15, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. All of these warnings indicate, as we see with eschatology in general, end times, the study of last things, we see that there is both a level of completion and not yet. Already and not yet is found throughout eschatology. We know here that Jesus was giving warnings that applied to that generation, to that group. We've seen already that the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. We've seen that it was brought down, and that every stone that Jesus promised that would be torn down has been torn down. That is the already but not yet part of the end time message here that Jesus has for us. He also gives us insight into the fact that his return does not happen until these other events, the beginning of birth pains, have started, but other events more pains must come. And we've seen that throughout the decades, throughout the centuries. And this already and not yet aspect of eschatology, of end times theology, is something we always have to remember. Let's move down now to verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Jesus again providing more insight for us on his return. When those last times of tribulation occur, Jesus will return. But he tells us, if we move back to verse 25, that it'll be easy to recognize his return. He says here, "See, I have told you before. So if they say to you, 'Look, he is in the wilderness,' do not go out. If they say, 'Look, he is in the inner rooms,' do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather." So Jesus tells us clearly, don't be looking for me in some hideaway, in some secluded place. When I return, the second coming, it'll be across the heavens. We'll see him from east to west. There will be no doubt that the Messiah is returning, that Jesus is returning. Moving now to verse 36, and as I mentioned, Jesus says, no one knows the day and the hour. But concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. So Jesus here telling us that regarding the day and the hour, while he was here on earth, he didn't know. It was the Father's privilege to determine, to say when that day and hour, and he was the only one who knew. So when they were asking Jesus what it is about your return that will be unique, when will you be coming, he gives us all of this insight, but at the same time, he is telling us that there'll be wars and rumors of wars, tribulation. There'll be a time of tribulation like never before. So if you think about World War II and all of the deaths connected to that great world war, over 100 million dying in Russia alone, many at the hands of Stalin himself, his own people being slaughtered by him. And then Hitler, of course, with 6 million Jews. Imagine that those last days will be even more severe than that. Those last of the last days. And then Jesus tells us in chapter 25 what we're supposed to do in light of that. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with the lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a cry, "Here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all those arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise answered, saying, Since there will not be enough for you and for us, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves." And while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." He goes on here also to tell us of the parable of the talents. And Jesus simply telling us here, we don't know the day and the hour. We don't know it for a reason, so that we'll always be alert, so that we'll always be about the kingdom and the master's work. And Jesus here again making that clear in the parable of the 10 virgins and the parable of the talents. So to wrap up this brief Bible study, this brief look at end times as found in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew chapter 24, we are reminded that the end times have been here for over 2,000 years. Yes, we are in the end times, but so were those followers of Christ in the first century. We also should never be listening to anyone who says they know the day, the hour. That's not the way it works, and there's a reason for that. Because Jesus wants us to be about this world, about this life, while at the same time being about his business. So, let's be resolute to do so. I thank you for joining me here today, my friends, my brothers and sisters in the Lord who've jumped on. It's a great privilege to be able to share just a little bit with you from the Gospel of Matthew and the Olivet Discourse.